Wow. Just switching to Roy real quick, just because we talked about Mike's style. Like, how would you kind of describe Roy's style? I know a lot of times they like to call it the chicken style, just obviously because, you know, he talked about his roosters and everything. But is there a way to label his style?
Well, I think Roy's, he's a boxer puncher. Mm-hmm. I mean, he can box, he can punch. I mean, a lot of people who are in this fight continue to talk about Mike Tyson's knockout power. But, you know, Roy's got 47 knockouts.
Yeah, he's got more.
Got more knockouts.
Right.
Regardless, he may have a few more fights. You know, he has more fights, but he has knocked more people out. Mm-hmm. You know, he's always been a guy that, you know, like I said, people are talking about Mike Tyson's power. Do not sleep Roy Jones's power. I mean, mm-hmm. He's got dynamite in his hands. I mean, he could knock you out with one punch. He could stun you and then take you out. Or he can, like I said, he can catch you with one shot and knock you out. With either hand. With many, many punches. In his career, he's knocked guys out with body shots. He's knocked them out with left hooks. He's knocked them out with right hands. He's knocked them out with uppercuts. So if you watch the archive of Roy Jones, you know that he can knock you out to the body and the head, and he can knock you out with either hand. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I mean, we could say the same about Mike, but, you know, Roy has been in more athletic weight classes.
That's true.
And people don't realize that. You know, the heavyweights, you know, and that's why, you know, if you can fight, you can fight. And that's why the all-time greats in boxing have been able to go up in weight class after weight class after weight class. And, you know, there's weight classes for a reason, but if you watch the guys that have done it, you know, it's because of, you know, they have such a great skill set and they are great athletes and they're able to climb those weight classes because, you know, even like I said, Roy going to a heavyweight, heavyweights arguably are the least athletic. Yeah. Even though the stature is big, they're not the athletes that some of these lighter boxers are.
Yeah. No, that's a fair statement. Yeah. You know, once upon a time, both those guys, while they were still active,
right,
they were actually considering fighting each other back then, which was probably over a decade. I'm sure. I mean, I know it was over a decade ago, maybe going on like 2 decades. But now they're going to do it when they're older. I think Tyson's 54, Roy's 51. I think. Do you think because they're older now, does that make the fight more dangerous now, or would it have been more dangerous back then when they were younger?
When you say dangerous, how are you referring to?
I guess there's a lot of different ways you could look at it. I mean, you know, obviously they're older now, so, you know, they might not be as fast now. You know, I mean, I don't know about the studies on the brain or anything like that, but just from that type of aspect, I don't really mean about like the threat of either guy to each other because they're both great fighters and they know how to handle themselves. I just kind of mean like from a physical standpoint, I think.
I think it's pretty equal, the same. I mean, you got guys back then, you know, maybe the velocity was a little bit, the punches were more, you know, at a higher velocity and they were, maybe, you know, but I feel like now, even though they're older, they are using a little bit. I mean, it's not much. Don't get me wrong. It's supposed to be a 12-ounce glove instead of a 10-ounce glove. When you put all things into the equation, I think it's pretty much the same. Okay. Really, I don't think it's any more or any less.
I guess plus they've both aged the same. It's not like one's young and one's old or anything like that. They're both pretty much the same age. So yeah, that makes sense.
I think that, you know, one thing, you know, hitting the pads and hitting the bag, Mike's look really, really good doing that, you know, and, but he hasn't been in a boxing ring under the lights for 15 years.
That's true.
And I'm not trying to take anything away from Mike Tyson, but I'm just saying that inactivity of actually being under the lights. Now, Roy is another, you know, he hasn't fought the high level of fights that he was fighting, but he has been active. And even 2018 was his last fight. So we're maybe 2.5 years ago was the last fight. So he's been a lot more active. And
that's not even long. There's some active fighters that haven't fought in 2.5 years.
right, exactly. So, he's relatively been a lot more active than Mike. I mean, Mike hasn't fought since 2005.
Wow.
And it's not only your and that's why I say don't ever underestimate the power of Roy Jones and his punching. And then when you haven't been hit with a real shot in 15 years, Mike hasn't been hit with a real shot in 15 years, like I said, in a real contest. I mean, I'm sure now he's going to be doing some sparring, but just, conditioning yourself and being able, when you're active, your body is more conditioned for those kind of things, and so he's got a lot of things that, like I said, a lot of people are doubting. I hear some doubtings about Roy's, his ability to endure, but Tyson hasn't endured anything in 15 years, and Roy's power is, like I said, believe in this fight is very underrated as well.
I know obviously it's, they're calling it an exhibition, but I'm sure you guys are treating it just like any other fight. Like, you guys are preparing for war, right?
For sure. We're preparing for, whatever, we're preparing and looking at it just like we would look at a fight. Like I said, looking at the guy's weaknesses, trying to nullify his strengths and expose his weaknesses. And we're training at a very high intensity. Of course, both guys' age will come into a factor but like I said, we got a lot more time now.
Yeah.
We were going to be ready regardless, but the extra time won't hurt. I mean, it won't hurt for sure. But Roy's been, like I said, we would have been ready for the September 12th because he stays in shape. He's down here and he trains a lot of guys now, so he's always working out with his fighters.
Yep.
And he's a hands-on boxing trainer. He's very hands-on, so he has been active in the gym throughout the years, and throughout, like I said, even the 2.5 years that he hasn't been actually boxing, he has been physically active. Where Mike has been. I mean, I've seen pictures of him now, unbelievable. But we've also seen over the last 15 years his body make many transitions and transformations. That I mean, look, when he was in the Hangover movie, right? He was really heavy, and then you see other times where he's heavy. And I actually knew Mike because Mike was promoting some shows in Pittsburgh as well. So I met him there, and I mean, like I said, I've seen his body over the years change many, many times. Where Roy has been pretty more consistent with staying in shape. Maybe not always in fight shape, but in some kind of shape. Right.
And that's wear and tear. When you're ballooning in weight like that, that's wear and tear on your body too.
For sure.
So just one last question. Trust me, I can ask you a million other questions, but I know I've taken a lot of your time. But I saw the video that you posted. You guys were obviously doing pad work. Right. Some fighters do pad work. Some fighters don't really like doing pad work. How important is pad work for a fighter like Roy Jones Jr.?
Well, pad work can be underrated. It can be overrated. It's depending upon what you're working on and why you're working on it.
Okay.
I always have a purpose with, why I'm working the mitts, whether I'm trying to get him to work on things that he's going to do in the fight, whether I'm trying to sharpen up some basic fundamentals, whether I'm implementing drills of slips and things that I know that my fighters, period, are going to have to use against certain guys, and learn how to be versatile. A lot of times when you're holding pads, you can't see the guy's feet or you have a hard time. I've had a lot of experience, so I know how to keep good vision on a guy's feet as well as. But a lot of times when guys are working pads, I mean, they're just catching pads, so they don't see any of the footwork going on. So
right.
When your guy's hitting a heavy bag, you're able to see everything. And when you're working the mitts and you are just working on combinations, and a guy has bad form, and you're just running numbers and doing things that and the guy's breaking down fundamentally and technically, it can be a huge detriment because you're training muscle memory, and the guy is throwing punches, and his technique is bad, and everything's bad, but he's just throwing combinations, and it looks good and it looks flashy. Mm-hmm. But the guy, his technique is breaking down. So there's a lot of reasons that like I do all kinds of different kind of pad work.
Right.
I will do things that I believe that keeps focus, even though it may be something that is not exactly what you're doing in a real fight, certain punches, but you're working drills where you're building muscle memory and you're building focus, where a guy can't, like a lot of people say, well, a guy's never going to throw a 20-punch combination. But what people don't realize is a lot of times when you're working mitts and you get a guy to throw punches every second of a 3-minute round, you are building his focus of concentration for an entire 80 seconds of a fight. Like Floyd Mayweather's pad work. We all know that he don't fight like that. But what he's building is muscle memory, and he's also building concentration and focus on when he's doing that repetitively. But he's got to be able to be focused the whole time for all 180 seconds. Of course, he's not rattling 20, all those combinations, doing all those things, but he is doing moves that he does, like the shoulder roll and certain things, these are the parries and the pullbacks, and he's doing that in his pad work routine. And he's also, like I said, he is steadily working, because a lot of guys will hit the pads and they take breaks. Then when you get in a fight, they take breaks. Yep. and a lot of people say, well, I heard people say that fighters like to hit the pads because they get breaks. Well, it's all the trainer's job not to let them take breaks, unless you're working on certain things and you're talking about it and you're going. So there's all kinds of different kind of pad work. But for Roy Jones and what we're doing for this fight, it's very, very good. Because like I said, I'm working on things that I want him to, sharpen up for this fight. Certain ideas and certain things that he's done in the past that I'm trying to revitalize and like I said, refresh his memory and take the rust off these things that he is so capable of doing. And so, when we do the pad work, it is specifically, it's not always the same thing, but it's specifically geared on something that he's going to have to use in the fight, or tools that he needs to sharpen up for the fight. And, he loves the double end bag, which is a great underrated tool that a lot of fighters don't use. And it's always kept his reflexes sharp, and being able to keep that hand-eye coordination is a fantastic bag. And he's not a big heavy bag guy, so it actually kills the belief that the heavy bag builds power, because Roy's really never hit the heavy bag in his whole career. Wow. Some of the times, because his hands, he's had some time. But even when his hands were good, he was young, he never did hit the heavy bag much, and he's had tremendous power. Wow. So it shows you how much a lot of it has to do with, natural born talent that you have, and being able to, have natural punching power. Punchers are born. You can always increase it with technique. You can always make a puncher be a better puncher. But, you have guys that are trying to get power by hitting the heavy bag, but they have no technique. So they get the heavy bag all day and the technique's wrong. It doesn't matter if they're hitting the heavy bag, they're hitting it wrong. Right. And they're not distributing their weight properly. It doesn't make a difference. And so, Roy has great technique, and especially, like I said, when he's reminded, to do what he's capable of doing. There's certain things, like I said, he had been so dominant, so he did, some of those things did get rusty, and he would pick up some habits that weren't so good. But they're in there, and like I said, his fundamental and his techniques is, like I said, he's an all-time great, and it's not just because of his reflexes. For sure. So November 28th, the big fight. You're going to be giving us some sneak peeks into training, right? On social media, YouTube channel? For sure. I'm going to keep that going. And so stay tuned for that on my World Class Boxing channel, as far as, and also my Instagram. You can follow me at Tom Yankello Boxing. And Facebook is Tom Yankello's World Class Boxing Gym as well. So I'll be putting things out on social media and my YouTube channel as well.
Perfect. Well, Tom, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me. We're definitely going to keep an eye out for those sneak peeks, those training leaks you're going to be dropping on us. And now we've got like 2 or 3 months now instead of just 1 month left for the fight. So
yeah,
that's awesome for us Roy Jones and Mike Tyson fans. We get to see a lot more of our legendary GOATs training and getting ready for the big fight. So best of luck to you. Hopefully this isn't the last time we talk, because you know that you're dropping a lot of knowledge. So we'll make sure we get you on Fight Hype as we get closer to the fight.
Definitely, Ben. I appreciate you having me. And then sneak peeks, like I said, I'll be putting them out there, and you know, a lot of times it'll be things that I want you to see for a reason, and there's certain things that you're not going to see, and I'm not going to put out because I don't want you to see for a reason.
Uh-oh. The art of war.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, the things that people see, you know, they might say, well, if that's what he's bringing, they're going to have their opinions. But, you know, I'm, like I said, it's definitely, you're going to see some things from Roy Jones you have never seen in a long time. And, you know, he's going to be ready for November 28th. We're looking forward to it.
Well, we're looking forward to it too. It's chess, not checkers. We can't wait.